Hello friends, this is Angelica. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing some faux watercoloring using a new stamp from Papertrey ink. This is the Towering Trees stamp set, and I'm going to use the large tree from this set for the faux watercoloring. I have my watercolor paper taped inside my MISTI, and I'm going to be keeping my paper in my MISTI this whole time. So that is why I have it taped down, because I do not want my paper moving at all. I'm going to be stamping this tree a few times. I can't remember how many layers I did, but probably 4 or 5 layers. So for the first layer, I'm stamping with Distress ink, and this is old paper. And all of the colors that I'm going to be using today are Distress inks, and that is because they are water activated. So once I stamp the tree, I'm going to use my water brush to kind of break up the ink and spread it out a little bit. When the ink is on the tree, before I stamp it, it kind of pools. So when I stamp it onto watercolor paper, it leaves little dots. So I do need to break those dots up and just kind of move the ink around. This is the only time that I'm going to stamp the top of the tree in full. After this, I'm going to be stamping in sections. I did this first layer for the full tree just so I have the tree silhouette on the paper and I can see how much room I'm working with. I can't really see the detail of this tree because the ink is not like a sharp ink, like a pigment ink would be, sitting on top of the paper. Like I said before, it just leaves a little bit of dots behind. So I also have the packaging next to me for the stamp set, and on that packaging is a silhouette of what this stamp will do. So I can see that there are branches, and I'm going to lose those branches right now a little bit, which is why I stamped in such a light ink. So I just wanted to see how large the tree is going to be on this panel. Now I'm going to start stamping in sections. Before I started stamping, I did make sure that my panel was dry. If you're stamping on paper that is wet, then the colors are just going to meld together and you're not going to have a lot of texture to your tree, a lot of dimension to the tree. So from here on out, I will be doing sections, and that way I can give each side of the tree that I'm working on time to dry. The Distress inks that I'll be using on this tree are Fired Brick, Wild Honey, and Rusty Hinge, and I'm going to be working from red on the right side of the tree to the Wild Honey on the left side of the tree. I'm also going to be stamping onto the tree and using the water brush to move the ink on the tree, and then also sometimes I'll be moving the ink on the stamp like I just did. Now if you are going to move the ink on the stamp, which gives you a really pretty watercolor look, but you do need to be really careful of your water control if you're going to do that. You do not want to have a lot of water on the stamp. If you do, then you are definitely going to lose any sort of detail that's on that side of the stamp, especially the branches. And you're also taking a chance of the water kind of oozing out from under the stamp when you're pushing down on your MISTI, and it's going to make a mess. So just pay attention to water control. And if you are new to watercoloring, this is such a great technique to learn water control. And the water control probably will be making more sense if you're using a watercolor brush instead of a water pen. This is the first time that I've used a water pen on a project, and I was really surprised at how easy it was to use this pen or this water brush. And water brushes are so inexpensive. I bought this water brush. It came with it was in a pack of 2 and a spray bottle. It was around $12. You can get them as cheap as $5 for a single water brush, so they are really inexpensive compared to a watercolor brush. If you're not familiar with a water brush, it does have a well that my fingers are on right now, and in that well I have unscrewed the top, added a little bit of water, and when I have the pen facing down when I'm brushing it on the tree, that water just keeps the tip of the pen wet. If I squeezed the pen, then a whole bunch of water would come out. But I have found out that the pen really does good with not making the tip too wet, which made this process so easy. I'm going to be turning on music so you can watch the process, but before I do, I just want to bring attention to what I'm going to be doing with highlights and lowlights. When I'm adding the ink down, I am doing my best to make sure that I'm leaving some areas white or just showing that really light green that I'd stamped first. And that way it just gives the tree a little bit of dimension. Like if you're outside and looking through a tree and you can barely see the sky through the leaves, that is what I'm trying to do here, leaving white space. And also with the water brush, I'm actually not using strokes to move the ink around. I'm actually doing more of a pouncing, and I love doing this when I'm coloring. It just looks a bit more organic to me instead of coloring in strokes. When I'm doing detail work with markers or with watercolor brushes, I do pounce the brush a bit more than adding strokes. Not so much the first couple layers, but when it comes time to adding detail, I do the pouncing a lot more than brushing back and forth. I zoomed the camera in so you can see how I am moving the pen. I do color really slowly, so I have this sped up so we're not here for the next hour. It did take me an hour to paint 2 trees, and I'm going to do the second tree on screen also. The second tree I'll be doing with a watercolor brush. So you can see what a watercolor brush looks like too doing this project, but it's not needed. The watercolor brush is so much more expensive than a water brush, but I was interested on what the water brush would do, and the tree turned out really pretty, so I just kept it in the video. Oh, and also the low lights. I forgot to talk about the low lights. So like I said, I'm leaving a little bit of white space here and there in the tree. And then once I'm getting closer to finishing, I'm going to bring in a brown ink. I'll be using Scorched Timber Distress ink. And I'm going to use that ink to add shadows to underneath some of the leaves. And that's going to really bring this tree to life. It's just going to give it so much dimension. So now I'm going to put on some music and I'll let you watch me finish this tree. And then I'm also going to paint a smaller tree using green inks and brown inks. To finish the cards or the panels, I'm going to stamp a sentiment on each panel. I'm using a sentiment from the same stamp set, and I am stamping with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. You know, this is my favorite black ink to use, but it is a pigment ink, so it is going to sit on top of this watercolor paper that is really textured, so it's going to take a couple minutes to dry. If you do stamp on a textured paper, you do want to make sure you don't touch it for a couple minutes or the ink will smear. So this is going to finish this video. Like I said before, this stamp set is part of Papertrey Inc.'s April release, and I actually have a blog full of projects from this release. I'll leave a link down to my blog down in the description. That way you can head over there and see all the fun goodies that were in this release. I had so much fun playing with it. I'll also link Papertrey Inc.'s store down in the description, and a couple of water brushes that you can go and look at too if you're interested. That is all that I have for today. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will be back shortly with another video, so I'll see you then, friends. Take care.